Many people believe that narcissists love themselves excessively, but the truth is deeply ironic. They don't love themselves at all. What they love is the mask they wear, the illusion they present to others. And every time they hurt someone, especially someone who once loved them, trusted them, and forgave them, that mask begins to crack. Have you ever asked yourself, do they feel remorse? Do they feel anything when they betray me? If you're in that place, please don't look away from this video. Because today, we're going deep into their psychology to uncover a painful yet liberating truth. They do feel, just not in the way you hope. If you're on a healing journey, if you've ever been hurt by a narcissist or simply want to understand how they operate on a deeper level, hit that subscribe button now. This is your place, a place of truth, freedom, and recovery. And watch this video to the end, because what you're about to hear won't just help you understand them. It will help you reclaim your power. When a narcissist hurts you, it's not merely an impulsive or thoughtless act. It's a deeply ingrained defense mechanism rooted in the core of their distorted personality, a subconscious reaction meant to conceal the primal shame they never dare to name. They do not love themselves, as many might believe. The only thing they know how to do is construct a false ego, a perfect, invincible, successful version of themselves, a dazzling mask patched together with fragments of others' admiration. But here's the problem: that mask cannot stand on its own. It must be constantly upheld by external validation, day after day, hour after hour, and you, the one who once loved them unconditionally, were the ideal mirror they clung to. So when they betray you, hurt you, crush your trust, they're not just harming you, they're unintentionally damaging the very structure of identity they depend on. In the moment you look at them with suspicion instead of admiration, they see themselves naked, weak, and contemptible. But instead of facing that feeling, they choose the easier path: attack you, blame you, make you the cause of every tragedy. Because for them, to feel that deep shame is akin to a psychological death. They don't have the internal foundation to withstand the truth that they were wrong, that they hurt the only person who ever accepted their real self. So they do the only thing they know: destroy you to protect themselves. But what they never expected is that when you don't collapse as they hoped, when you remain standing, walking, slowly healing, your silence resounds like a verdict. And it's then that the shame they once denied begins to knock, not with words, but with a cruel emptiness in the soul. Envy, a feeling no one wants to admit, yet it creeps in like a cold wind into the darkest corners of an unhealed heart. And for the narcissist, envy is not just a fleeting emotion, it's a constant whisper, corroding their inner world whenever they see a light in someone else they can never reach. You once thought the person who hurt you was proud, powerful, and confident, but the truth is far more brutal. They're not envious of your possessions, status, or looks. They envy your authentic self, your sincerity, kindness, and inner strength that you can express without pretending. In the eyes of the narcissist, you are everything they can never be. You feel real emotions they do not. You love without calculation. They only know how to exchange. You have the courage to admit faults. They live in the safety of denial. And that hurts them, not because they love you, but because your existence is living proof of what they lack. A whole soul. When you are hurt but still rise. When you're abandoned but still know how to love yourself. When you no longer need them to be who you are. In that very moment, they feel defeated in a deep, unspeakable way. They will never say, "I envy your strength." Instead, they'll say, "You're cold and motionless." They will never admit, "I wish I could love like you." Instead, they'll mock you for being weak, for being too sensitive. That is how a narcissist deals with envy. They devalue what they cannot possess, not because you are ordinary, but because you are extraordinary. They will watch you in silence, waiting to see if you're truly happy. And when they see you living authentically, and living well, living free from their influence, that is their most painful moment. Not because they lost you, but because they lost the illusion that they are the center of the universe. You don't need to take revenge. You don't need to prove anything. The fact that you continue to live true to your kind and free nature is the clearest answer to the envy they will carry for the rest of their lives. People often ask, do narcissists ever feel regret? The answer is yes, but it's not the kind of regret you hope they feel. A narcissist doesn't regret hurting you. They regret losing someone they can no longer control. They're not in pain because you left. They're in pain because they lost the mirror that once reflected the false self they tried so hard to construct. Deep down, they know you are real. They know you once saw the most vulnerable parts of them and still chose to stay. They know you once loved them with a patience they could never offer themselves. And they know they destroyed something sacred, even if they'll never admit it. But unlike an emotionally mature person, their regret doesn't come from compassion. It comes from the loss of control, from that sinking realization. I once had someone who truly cared, and I wasted it, like it would last forever. You are a part of their life that later, when the night falls and the applause from their fake audience fades, they will remember with a hollowness that nothing can fill. But they won't seek you out to apologize. They'll come back to see if you're still as easy to manipulate as before. Because a narcissist's regret never leads to change. It only drives them to restore their former role, where you orbited around them like the sun around the earth. And if you open your heart again, they'll hurt you again, just to confirm that their power still exists. That's why you don't need their remorse to heal. What you need is the truth. Their regret may be real, but it will never be strong enough to become love. You were the light in their darkness, and when you stepped out of that darkness with your heart still intact, they didn't just lose an ego servant, they lost an opportunity they never deserved. And they know it, but they will never say it. They come back not because they've changed, not because they've realized your worth. They come back because your silence is more terrifying than your blame. They call it trying again, but in truth, it's a test of power. When a narcissist returns after being gone, they're not seeking forgiveness. They're checking if you're still as vulnerable as before. They say, I miss you, but what they really mean is, I miss the feeling of controlling you. They write, I think about you every day. But what they mean is, I haven't found anyone else who gives me the same sense of entitlement you once did. This is not love. This is the reestablishment of their central role in your universe. Hoovering, it sounds as gentle as a breeze, is actually one of the most calculated pulls. It targets your fond memories, your compassion, your longing to believe in genuine remorse. But don't confuse longing with the hunger for power. A narcissist doesn't miss you as a person, they miss you as a source, as a mirror reflecting their false greatness. So how do you overcome it? Through awareness. By realizing this, when you force yourself to forgive someone who hasn't apologized, you're not being noble, you're blurring your boundaries. Don't reply to the message. Don't give them a chance to explain. Because a narcissist doesn't need a chance to apologize, they need a crack to re-enter and regain influence. And do you know what the miracle is? When you don't react, you win. When you no longer need an apology to move forward, you are free. They'll call you cruel. They'll create a narrative where you are cold and heartless, but you know the truth. And truth doesn't need validation, because once you understand the game, you no longer need to play it. You rise, not to fight, but to walk away with your head held high. And that is something they will never be able to do. After your silence, after you pulled away and left an unfillable void, they refused to accept the truth. They couldn't face the reality that they no longer had control over you. So they did what narcissists do best. They rewrote history. They'll tell others, and sometimes even themselves, that you were the bad one. They'll say, she was too sensitive. He always pushed me away. They were never grateful. They'll alter details, cut out context, recolor the story until they become the victim and you become the one who caused the pain. Why did they do this? Because if they had to admit they destroyed something beautiful, they also have to admit the problem was within themselves. And that, for a narcissist, is unbearable. You may feel frustrated hearing their fabrications. You want to correct the story. You want to prove the truth. But remember, you don't have to defend the truth to those who have already chosen to reject it. They don't distort the past because they forgot it. They distort it to survive within the illusion they've created. And here lies the deepest wound. Not because they didn't understand that you truly loved them, but because they did understand and chose to deny it, because that truth wounds their fragile pride. So instead of reacting, stay grounded in your reality. Rewrite the story for yourself with honesty, kindness, and self-respect. You don't need others to agree to know that you live truthfully, love sincerely, and left with dignity. You don't need to clear your name, because inner peace is the loudest proof. And in the end, when people build stories to cover up their faults, your powerful silence becomes a bell that rings in the conscience of those wise enough to see the truth. Something strange happens when you walk away from a narcissist's toxic world. You think their indifference is the end, but no, that's just a prelude to a new act, envy. You think they've forgotten you, that you're now just a name erased from their memory. But the reality is the opposite. They are still watching, not out of love, but out of envy. Envy that you're still living. Envy that you're still smiling. Envy that you didn't fall apart. A narcissist doesn't envy your material success. They envy what they cannot replicate. The peace you built after the storm. The freedom in your soul after rejecting manipulation. The healing they'll never know how to achieve. When they see you no longer playing their emotional games, they feel invisible. And for a narcissist, invisibility is their worst nightmare. They cannot stand the image of you shining brighter, living more authentically, freer, without their presence. Because that reveals a truth they've always tried to deny. They're no longer important, and they were never the source of your life. That envy doesn't explode, it simmers in silence. It shows up in sideways glances, accidental messages, veiled words passed through others. But don't mistake it for regret. No, it's the restlessness of seeing you possess something they can never touch. And here is the truth you must remember. Your peace is the most powerful resistance. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to go back to show them. Just keep walking. Gently, steadily. That's enough, because when someone tried every trick to control you and still couldn't destroy you, it's your calm after the storm that terrifies them most. Don't be too quick to rejoice when a narcissist returns. Their return is not a sign of remorse. It's not because they realize your worth. It's not because they miss love. It's because they miss power. They return not to love you, but to control you once more. They come back when they see you standing tall, saying no, and no longer reacting on command. That's when they feel their power slipping. And for a narcissist, losing control is like death. They come back with sweet apologies, beautiful memories, and promises of change. They do everything to cloud your mind, to make you question your feelings, to make you temporarily forget why you left. And if you're not fully aware, you'll fall back into the same old trap. They don't love you. They're just envious of the freedom you've just found. And they'll do anything to pull you back into the darkness where they can manipulate you again. They don't miss you. They miss the feeling of being the center of your world. They miss the feeling of pressing a button and watching you suffer. They miss the power to hurt you without the fear of losing you. So when they come back, you need to understand they haven't changed. They've just changed their tactics. It used to be gaslighting. Now it's you're the best I've ever had. It used to be cold silence. Now it's you understand me better than anyone. But don't forget, their words are tools, not their heart. You may feel stirred because you once loved sincerely, because you're someone who feels empathy, who believes in goodness. But remember, kindness is not a ticket for others to return and break you all over again. If they had truly changed, they wouldn't need to come back and convince you with words. They would let their actions, time, and mature silence speak instead. But if they return suddenly, like a breeze carrying sweet promises, it's not love. That's strategy. And this strategy only works if you still want them to return. So if they come back, look them straight in the eyes and remember everything you had to heal from. You don't need to seek revenge. You just need to keep living strong, peaceful, and unreactive. Because your calmness is the loudest declaration. I am no longer who I was. I am the one who saved myself. Silence is a language, and when a narcissist uses it, never mistake it for peace. Their silence is not a sign of maturity, but a sign of fleeing from accountability. It's not a quiet space for reflection. It's the most subtle form of manipulation. They go silent to make you question yourself. They go silent to test if you still crave connection. They go silent to maintain power in a game where only they set the rules. And you, someone who once lived with sincere emotions, will feel confused, let down, then hurt. Because you think that silence means I'm not important. But in reality, it means you're too important for them to control. They're not silent because they've let go, but because they don't know how to come back without facing the truth that they destroyed something beautiful they never deserved. Narcissists can't handle the truth because truth shakes the mask they've worn all their lives. And in their silence, instead of repenting, they rebuilt the story, this time casting themselves as the victim. They don't admit fault. They don't face the pain they've caused. They redefine the story so they remain right. And you become the betrayer, the weak one, the one to blame. But the truth doesn't lie in what they say or don't say. The truth lies in the fact that they know exactly what they've lost. They won't say it, but they know. They lost someone who was willing to love them genuinely without calculation. And because they can't face that, they choose silence as a wall to protect their hollow ego. They'll act like you never existed, but don't let that hurt you. Their dismissal does not reflect your worth. It It only shows their inability to face the light you once brought. You were the one who loved sincerely. You were the one who offered chances, forgiveness, and trust. And now, their silence is the final proof that you were right to walk away. So, don't break the silence with a message, an explanation, or a just want to talk. They don't deserve that response. Their silence is the only exit they have left. When they no longer have a reason to exist in the world you're learning to heal in, let them be silent, because in that silence you're stepping into freedom, and they are trapped in the psychological cage they built for themselves. Narcissists can endure many things. They can handle hatred. They can revel in the victim role. They can even pretend not to care when you leave. But there's one thing they cannot stand: the image of you living well without them. They won't say it. They'll act like they don't notice. But don't let that silence fool you. Your success, your peace, your laughter, and your eyes no longer filled with pain. Those are the deepest cuts into the illusion of power they once held, because you didn't just walk away. You rose above, and that terrifies them in a way they will never admit. You did what, in their distorted mind, you were never supposed to do. You healed. You stood on your own. You smiled not because of them, but in spite of them. They once believed you needed them to feel worthy. They were certain that without them, you would crumble. So when you stand there radiant, free, and at peace, they cannot bear it. Why? Because in the mind of a narcissist, dominance doesn't end in the present. It stretches into your future. They want you to be haunted forever. They want you to always remember them with a hint of regret, a lingering wound. And when that doesn't happen, when you truly let go, when you no longer think of them, that is the moment they feel completely invisible. And nothing is more cruel to someone who lives for the gaze of others than invisibility. You're thriving, that is their ultimate failure, because it proves they were never the source of light in your life. They were not the reason you smiled, and they were certainly not the final definition of the love you deserve. And they know that. Every photo you post, every project you launch, every moment you live authentically, each one is undeniable evidence that they couldn't destroy you, and that makes them envious. Not because you have more than them, but because you became something they could never be, a whole human being without pretense. Deep down, they know your happiness is something they can't control, can't take away, and can't replicate in the empty life they now live. They can't copy true joy. They can't fake inner peace, because those things don't come from power, but from truth. And you are the embodiment of the truth they've always run from. The truth that love is not control. Love is not manipulation. Love is not the fear of abandonment. So never shrink yourself for fear of hurting them. You are not obligated to comfort the one who made your heart heavy. Live fully, succeed gloriously, love deeply, and don't ask their permission to do so, because when they see you shine, not in pain, not in waiting, but in the light that is truly your own, that's when they know they have lost for good. You don't need their apology. You don't need their return. You don't need them to prove you mattered, because the truth is you already had worth, even when they lack the capacity to see it. If you've ever asked yourself, do they regret it? Do they realize what they've lost? Do they hurt? Do they feel empty the way I once did? The answer is yes, but not in the way you imagine. They hurt not because they lost you, but because they lost control over you. They feel empty not because they loved you, but because there's no one left to reflect their illusion. And you, the one who once gave them sincere love, have become the mirror they can no longer avoid. But you don't need to be anyone's mirror anymore. You weren't born to save souls that reject healing. You were born to live authentically, to love, and to be free. That freedom doesn't come from their apology or their admission of guilt. It comes from choosing yourself, from walking away without resentment, from not needing to win over anyone, only to not lose yourself. If you're still listening now, remember this. You are the light, and light needs no permission to shine. Hit subscribe if this message has spoken to your soul, because you deserve to be reminded every day you are not alone, and every step away from pain is a step toward real life. See you in the next video, and never forget, the light within you can never be taken away.